to destroy ourselves. We will one day venture to the stars. A still more glorious dawn awaits, not a sunrise, but a galaxy rise. A morning filled with 400 billion suns. The rising of the Milky Way.
Hello everyone, it is my last video for February, I believe, unless I have one next weekend. But I'm going to begin by talking first about the Wide Field Infrared Survey Explorer, which is the telescope WISE that NASA launched late last year when it became operational in January. And on February 17th, the first pictures from WISE have been published into the public, and you will be able to see those at the beginning of the video when I put the little slideshow up there in the very beginning. Anyway, that being said, I am going to talk about books because that seems to be a staple of the Angus segment. I am reading this book. Obviously you can look at it, 2001: A Space Odyssey. I have not actually read this in my long time of obsession with science fiction books. So it's fun to actually read it. So far I am about 130 pages into it. I started it on Sunday. It's pretty good. I would compare it close to that caliber of Contact, but I personally like Contact better thus far. 2001: A Space Odyssey is a very much more cerebral book, slower moving. There's not much going on in it. There's just a lot of thinking inside characters' heads. It's a fun book, so I will talk more about it next week when I finish it. And finally, I've been doing a lot of Chinese studying because of a quiz I was supposed to do today, and I had the quiz, and it was interesting. This is the first time in the Chinese class where I've had about 60% of the quiz on oral discussion, like actual oral quiz, which means I had to go out with the professor, and then he'd ask me questions, I'd answer, I'd ask him questions, he'd ask, and I did fairly well on it, except for this one problem, which was 你住有什么, which means, do you have a roommate, or do you live with a roommate? At the time, I could not understand what 有事 meant, because in Chinese, 有 and 事 means to have and to be. So 有事吗 was like, eh? I didn't understand what the question was asking, so I was like, no, I don't understand. And turns out, it was asking if I lived with a roommate. So later on, I was with John and my friend Emily here, and we were talking about the Chinese quiz and how I didn't do that well, because there's other problems I had with it too. And I was thinking about it, I was talking about it, it's like, oh, this was the question, and I couldn't understand what, and then, as I was in the middle of my sentence, it struck me. It was asking, do I live with a roommate? So I turned to John and said, it's all your fault that I did poorly on this quiz. And he was like, ha 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 ha. And I am going to stick by it, because I think it is all his fault. As you know, it couldn't have possibly been my fault, because I wasn't the one taking the quiz or anything. Anyway, in the same vein about John is the fact that we were running around downtown yesterday because Emily has a friend from Minnesota visiting here. So we went to a bookstore called Starlight Books. It's a nice, small bookstore run by the owner. Not a big chain store at all. They handpick all the different books that are stocked there. They actually had a first edition of a Carl Sagan, Shadows of Forgotten Ancestors, which I'll be buying when I get money. They also had another Sagan book. They also had a sizable Douglas Adams section, of which John ended up being sneaky and got me this one. Now, I have all the Douglas Adams books. As you can see, I do indeed have all of Adams, including The Meaning of Life, Last Chance to See, Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul, I do have Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, but not here. And then up in that direction, on the hardcover shelf, I have The Shaman of Doubt. Yes, I do have quite a few. And I also have a hardcover edition of the first Hitchhiker's book. However, that mostly pales in comparison to what John decided to be very tricky about and get me. Specifically, this. This is Douglas Adams' Life, the Universe, and Everything. And you cannot really see it, but this here says first edition. This book was written in 1982, and this was the very first publication of it. So John, in being his sneaky self, ended up buying me a first edition Douglas Adams book. So I get to pay him back eventually, and we'll see how exactly I will. So, John, if you ever watch these, expect the unexpected. Mel saw a video, well, I didn't actually see it yet because I've been very busy this weekend. Lots of things have been going on. I'll be watching it immediately after I post this video. So have no worries. I will actually see your video and I will publish it, share it, and link it up to the rest of the table videos now that I actually have some downtime. Otherwise, everybody, this is Angus, February 22nd, 2010, reminding you that laziness prevails, and I'll see you all again next week.